To protect my privacy, I decided to keep my name anonymous. I'm not sure how to begin my story, but I'll do the best I can. I guess I'll start by informing you about the show Blue's Clues. For those of you who have never watched it, Blue's Clues is a show for young children that was created in 1996. It lasted for 10 years with a total of 6 seasons and 142 episodes. The show involves Steve or Joe looking for clues and solving mysteries to help for the audience. Blue was an animated dog leaving the clues for paw prints. Blue's Clues was a hit with many little kids, including me at the time. The idea was original and the artwork was amazing. However, Steve Burns was the backbone of the show. Steve Burns was the actor who played Steve. He was more serious than Barney the dinosaur, but he loved kids and knew exactly how to make them happy. There was just something magical about his enthusiasm that made me want to... Okay, where was I? Right. That made me want to watch more and more of his episodes. The saddest part of my childhood was when Steve left the show in 2002 and pursued a musical career. Steve was replaced by Donovan Patton, who was the actor for Joe, but it wasn't the same. I stopped watching Blue's Clues after Steve left. The show just lost its magic for me. Joe was nothing like Steve. He was a total goofball, but my mother told me that Donovan Patton was acting too hard. When I turned 16, my family moved to a large three-story house in upstate New York that was previously owned by a nice old lady. A few weeks after moving in, I decided to explore in the attic. I found an old trunk. To my surprise, it was filled with a bunch of old VHS tapes. All of them were Blue's Clues tapes. I knew the old lady's cell phone number, so I decided to call her and ask her about the tapes. She told me that she bought them from a collector a couple of years ago for her grandson to watch. Or a few years back for her little grandson to watch. After I thanked her and hung up, I emptied the trunk before checking the tapes. All of them had episodes that I already watched, except for one. The one tape I found just had a regular sticker, not a factory sticker like the other tapes had. The title of the tape sticker was Blue's Clues Sorrow. I thought the title was a little strange, but I figured it was just a copy of the Steve Goes to College episode, the one where Steve goes off to college and Joe takes his place. Because Steve said goodbye to all of his friends in the episode, I considered it to be very sorrowful indeed. When my parents went on their anniversary trip left me in charge of the house one night, I figured it was a perfect opportunity to check out the tape. Our TV has a VCR. I have to admit, I felt a tingle of excitement when I placed the tape in my player. I was about to relive my childhood memories of watching Blue's Clues. I didn't care if I was too old to watch it. I knew for sure that I would enjoy it. At least it's what I thought. The episode started off completely normal. The Blue's Clues book opened up, and Steve looked out the window of his little yellow house. Hi out there, it's me, Steve. Have you seen Blue? Wait, she's not here. Well, come on in. The front door opened, and Steve was in the living room looking concerned. I need to tell you something important. Blue is at the vet. She's having an operation on her heart. I hope she's okay. Steve stopped talking and looked down at the floor. The scene ended. The next scene showed Steve in the vet. He sat in the waiting room without making a sound. He did nothing but stare at the doors which led into the operating rooms. A surgeon opened the door. But she wasn't an animated character. She was a real person. She whispered in Steve's ear, but I could hear everything she said. Her heart started beating. We tried our best, but we couldn't get it to beat again. I'm sorry. The scene ended. The next scene started with a title card saying that a month had passed after Blue's funeral. A deep voice spoke. There are 5 stages of the grief process: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. The voice said. Steve will experience 3 stages all at once: depression, anger, and mental illness. Steve was in his bedroom, lying in bed. He began to cry. The color of the episode turned black and white like a depressing old photograph. Steve cried so hard his breathing grew shallow. The scene ended. The next scene showed Steve sitting up on his bed. He stopped crying, but his face is now red and his teeth were clenched tightly. Steve held his stuffed anteater Horace with both hands. He screamed, Blue! At the top of his lungs. His scream sent chills down my spine. Steve ripped off Horace's head, and black goo squirted out of the stuffed animal's neck. Steve threw Horace in a fit of rage. When the ant-eater landed, its ooze completely covered the floor. I fought the urge to vomit. Against my better judgment, I decided to keep watching. Steve's body began to turn darker and darker by the second. After about 5 seconds, Steve turned completely black like a silhouette. He got up out of bed, walked out of the bedroom, and walked into his living room. I thought that he was going to sit in his big red thinking chair, but he didn't. He stood in front of the chair and stared at the screen for a full minute. His eyes lost their pupils and became nothing more than white dots. He started crying again, and white tears streamed down his face. Some sad piano music began to play. The music was so heartbreaking I shed a few tears myself. A message flashed across the screen. It said, "You can't figure out Blue's Clues, but you can't figure out sanity." The scene ended. The next scene showed Steve still standing in the living room. He was no longer crying, and his body was a completely normal color. "I can't live without Blue," he said. "She was my best friend. She gave my life happiness and meaning. Without her, I have nothing to live for." The kids in the background that helped Steve find the clues started to cry with Burr. They shouted, "Please don't do it, Steve. We love you. We're your friends too." "I'm sorry," Steve said. "I'm sorry if I break your heart for doing this, but I have no choice. Goodbye." He held up a container. The camera zoomed in on the label, which said potassium cyanide. Steve had a calm look on his face as he swallowed the contents of the container. He instantly collapsed onto the carpet. He foamed at the mouth while his body twitched and thrashed on the floor like he was being electrocuted. Steve eventually stopped moving. I knew that he was dead. The episode finally ended with my TV cut to static. I sat still, dazed. It took my brain a few minutes to figure out what I had just watched. I made the decision there and there to play detective and find out where the world this episode came from. I looked at the name of the episode online, but came up with nothing. I know that the company Viacom owned Blue's Clues because their company name was shown in the factory stickers of every VHS tapes. After a bit of research, I word to the Viacom headquarters. I told them about my experience and asked them if they knew where the tape came from. 2 weeks later, I got a reply in the mail. "Dear Mr. Anonymous, thank you for taking the time to write to us. We were quite surprised by the story about the other episode of Blue's Clues that you discovered. We are grateful that you contacted us concerning it. We can personally assure you that Viacom Media Network, as well as Viacom, claims no ownership or liability whatsoever regarding the episode. However, we still feel that an explanation is in order. Unfortunately, we are unable to provide details of the tape's creation, as we simply don't know how this happened. Back in 2002, we received a VHS tape and package with no return address. The words Mr. Ted are written in the package, along with the tape. There was a letter from Mr. Ted saying that he was the biggest fan of the Blue's Clues series and asked for our approval to air his fan-made creation on television. We were quite flattered that the fan would send us a family episode for airing. However, when our editors viewed the episode of refinement, we were quite appalled by its nature. A few of the staff who viewed the episode believed went into shock and had to be transported to the emergency room immediately. Due to the horrifying content, we had absolutely no plans to air this episode. We passed the tape to a private collector, but we were dismayed to discover that he had many copies made. We ask you, please do not release the contents of the tape or this letter to the public, as we do not want to upset the viewers who love and support our shows for young children. With all regards, Michael D. Frickless, Executive Vice President, General Counsel, and Secretary. Questions bounced around on inside my head, and they still to this day. Who is Mr. Ted? How is he able to create this demonic episode? Is he even, human? Out of respect for Viacom, I'm afraid I cannot provide any footage. However, I figured at least a single screenshot of the copy of the letter to the public would make them too angry. You're probably wondering, why are you telling me this? What's the point of the story? To be honest, I just wanted to get off my chest. I've kept it a secret for a little while, but I eventually felt the desire to tell someone. Whether they believe me or not, a part of my brain told me to throw away the tape and the letter, but I kept both my closets to remind me that what I experienced was real. I now realize that some so-called fans of TV shows are not as normal as you might think they are.